The woman was sitting on the edge of Dock 47 alone, her silver gown torn, her hands trembling over a broken comm tablet. To anyone else, she looked like another lost soul stranded in the chaos of the galactic rim, just another refugee trying to escape the outer systems before the next pirate raid. But something about her didn't fit. Her posture was too poised, her expression too calm despite the panic around her. Even in the dim glow of Titan Station's flickering lights, I noticed her eyes, a deep shade of violet that shimmered faintly, like stars reflected on dark water. I was a mechanic, nothing more. My ship, the Halcyon wreck, was barely holding together after years of smuggling jobs and salvage runs. I was just there to refuel, get a few replacement thrusters, and be gone before curfew. Yet something about the way she sat there, silent, almost regal in her ruin, made me pause. "Hey," I said, approaching carefully. "You lost or waiting for someone?" She looked up at me slowly, scanning my face as though trying to read something in it. "My ship that's gone. They took everything." Her voice was quiet, soft, but it had an accent I couldn't place. Not from any human colony I knew. I sighed. "You're lucky to be alive then." "Pirates." She nodded faintly. "They boarded us near the Vega Passage. My guards, they fought, but she swallowed. I escaped in a pod." "Guards?" I frowned. Refugees didn't usually travel with guards. She avoided my gaze. "Please. I just need passage off this station. I can pay later." Normally, I'd have said no. I'd learned the hard way that strangers with no money meant trouble. But something about her, maybe that strange dignity even in the dirt, made me say, "Fine. One condition. You don't bring any heat on my ship." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "I won't." And that's how I ended up taking aboard a woman who looked like she'd fallen from heaven and landed in hell. For the first few hours, she didn't say much. She sat quietly in the passenger bay, staring at the streaks of light outside as we jumped through the Helios gate. Every once in a while, I caught her tracing strange patterns in the air, symbols maybe, or calculations. It wasn't until our second jump that I finally asked, "You got a name?" She hesitated. "Lyra." "Lyra what?" "Just Lyra." I smirked. "Mysterious. I like it." She gave a faint, tired smile. "And you?" "Jace Corin. Captain, pilot, engineer, janitor, all in one." Her smile widened slightly. "A one-man crew. Impressive." "Not by choice," I muttered. We fell into silence again, but there was something about her that kept tugging at my curiosity. She didn't move like a refugee. Her clothes, even torn, were made from synth silk I'd only ever seen in holo ads for the Inner Systems elite. Her mannerisms, the way she spoke, the subtle precision in her tone, screamed high birth, maybe even nobility. But I didn't press. People ran from all kinds of things in the galaxy. We stopped at a small outpost to refuel. While I was negotiating with the fuel clerk, Lyra wandered off. When I found her again, she was in front of a holo terminal, quietly accessing restricted files using codes that definitely weren't civilian. "What are you doing?" I hissed, pulling her away. "You trying to get us arrested?" She turned to me, calm as ever. "I was checking the outer trade routes. There's been a blockade near the Polaris corridor. We shouldn't go that way." I blinked. "How the hell would you know that?" "I have connections." "Right," I muttered. "Connections. You're not a runaway noble or something, are you?" Her expression shifted slightly, almost guilty. Would it matter if I was? Before I could answer, the station alarms blared. The clerk shouted that an Imperial patrol had just entered orbit, scanning for a fugitive of interest. I grabbed her wrist. "Guess that answers my question. We're leaving."
She didn't resist.
She just whispered, "They found me faster than I expected." We barely made it out before the patrol locked onto us. My ship's old engine screamed as I forced a blind jump through an unregistered wormhole. The transition nearly tore the hull apart, but when we emerged, the scanners showed no pursuit. Breathing hard, I turned to her. "Mind telling me what the hell that was?" Lyra looked at me quietly. Then, with a sigh, she said, "You deserve the truth." She reached into the folds of her torn gown and pulled out a small crystal sigil, a shimmering diamond-shaped insignia etched with golden circuitry. I'd seen that symbol before. Everyone in the galaxy had. It was the crest of the Orion Dominion, the single most powerful ruling family in the galaxy. I froze. "You've got to be kidding me." She met my gaze steadily. "I am Lyra Vera Solis Orion, heiress to the Dominion throne." Or, I was. My mouth went dry. My family was betrayed. My uncle staged a coup 2 months ago. He controls the fleets now. I escaped the palace during the attack, but he wants me dead before I can challenge his claim. She paused. "You weren't supposed to find me, Jace. You were just supposed to help me reach someone safe." "Safe," I repeated. "There's nowhere safe from the Dominion." "Not entirely true," she said softly. "There's still the Coalition in the Outer Rings. If I can reach them, they'll help me reclaim what's mine." I ran a hand through my hair. "Lady, I'm a junker pilot. I fix broken ships for a living. You're asking me to smuggle the most wanted woman in the galaxy through Dominion space." She looked at me, eyes shining. "You don't have to do it for me. Do it for the billions who'll suffer if my uncle wins." And damn it, she had that look. That same unshakable calm that made people want to believe her. Against every instinct screaming run, I found myself nodding.
"Fine," I said.
"But you owe me one hell of a fuel bill." She smiled faintly. "When this is over, I'll make sure you never have to worry about credits again." For the next week, we drifted through outlaw space, dodging Dominion patrols and pirate scans. Somewhere along the way, our partnership turned into something more comfortable. She'd sit beside me in the cockpit, studying star charts, her fingers brushing the console like she'd flown 1,000 times before. She told me stories of her childhood, of growing up among the twin sons of Solis Prime, learning diplomacy, command, and compassion from her mother, the late Empress Alara. But there was sadness in her eyes whenever she spoke of home. One night, while the engines cooled in the dark between stars, she said quietly, "Do you ever wonder if you were meant for more, Jace?" I chuckled. "Me? I'm just a guy keeping old ships alive. More doesn't really fit into my schedule." She smiled. "Maybe it should. Sometimes the galaxy hides its greatest potential in the most unlikely souls." I wanted to say something witty, something that would make her laugh again, but before I could, the proximity alarm screamed. We were caught. A Dominion battleship had locked onto us, broadcasting an Imperial code demanding immediate surrender. Lyra's face went pale. "It's his fleet. My uncle's flagship." I gritted my teeth. Hang on. The Halcyon wreck wasn't built for battle, but I'd modified her over the years. Hidden plasma boosters, stealth plating, a few tricks I'd learned from old war vets. I plunged us into a debris field, weaving through asteroids as the battleship's cannons tore space around us. "Jace!" Lyra shouted. "You can't outrun them forever." Who said anything about running? I yanked the lever, redirecting all power to the rear thrusters. The ship lurched, and I triggered a pulse beacon, a decoy signal that projected a false warp signature. The Dominion ship locked onto the Ghost instead. We jumped, straight into a narrow corridor of dark hyperspace, known as the Vortex Run. Only smugglers used it. Only fools survived it. But somehow we made it. When the ship stabilized, Lyra looked at me in shock. You risked everything for me. I gave a half smile. You promised to pay the fuel bill. Her laugh, the first real one I'd heard, filled the cabin. Ending. We reached the coalition border 2 days later. Their ships, sleek and blue-lit, surrounded us with caution, but when Lyra stepped forward, holding the Orion crest high, the comms lit up with stunned silence. Your Highness, a commander said. We thought you were dead. Not yet, she replied. But my people will be if we don't act. They took her in with honor, promising protection and resources for her rebellion. I should have felt relief, maybe even pride. But as I watched her disappear into the bright halls of the coalition flagship, I felt empty. I'd brought her home, but it meant losing her. A week later, I was preparing to leave when a message came through my comlink, sealed with the royal crest. Jace, her voice said softly. You once told me you weren't meant for more. You were wrong. You saved not just me, but an entire empire's hope. The coalition has asked me to lead, but I can't do it alone. I need someone who isn't bound by titles or politics, someone who sees the galaxy as it really is. I stared at the screen, stunned. Come to Solis Prime, she said. Help me rebuild what was lost. And maybe find what we both were meant for. The transmission ended. I stood there for a long moment, staring out at the sea of stars. Then, with a quiet laugh, I powered up the Halcyon wreck one more time. Guess I'm going to meet the richest woman in the galaxy again, I muttered. As the engines flared and the stars stretched into brilliant lines, I couldn't help but smile. Because sometimes, fate doesn't look like destiny. Sometimes, it just looks like a helpless girl on a broken dock who happens to own half the galaxy.